The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Irene Varley and I'm Director of Education for the Dibble Institute. Today's webinar is Spring is in the Air, preparing students for safe proms and spring breaks. I have a few housekeeping tools for you as we begin. If you should have any technical questions today, you can, like for instance, most often if there's an audio problem, please write down this phone number. It was an access code, because you can watch the video and listen to the actual audio through the telephone. So you use your computer for the visual and your telephone for the audio. That's just in case sometimes that does happen. A reminder that you're all muted and questions and comments may be sent through your control panel. That's the panel on the far right hand of your screen. And if you look on the screen, there's a questions box. You can place any questions in that, or you can type your message as well. We really invite your participation, so we'll be doing two things today. We'll have some polling questions that will drop up on the screen, and we invite your participation in that. And we also will be asking for a raising of hands on some items. And of course, definitely questions and comments. Your questions will be answered either at the time that they're posed, if it's relevant immediate to the topic being discussed, or definitely later at the Q&A part, or even possibly we will directly answer that with you after the webinar. You'll get a direct message from us. Before I turn this over to Nancy, just one little few brief words about us. The Dibble Institute, and this is a picture of Charlie and Helen Dibble, and our mission is to equip young people with the skills and knowledge they need to develop healthy romantic relationships now and for their futures. In a way, our mantra is a teen's love life is not neutral to their future success. Charlie Dibble, as on the picture here, is our founder, and he was an aeronautical engineer who in his retirement was dedicated to working with young people. In doing so, he became well aware of the emotional challenges to their long-term well-being. This became most evident when in the early 90s at his grandniece's wedding, he heard her say, "Oh, Uncle Charlie, this is just my first wedding." It was a time the divorce rate was reaching its peak, and this very much concerned Charlie. He had heard many painful stories following the breakup of families from youth he worked with. Well, to make a long story short, Charlie quickly realized little was being done to address the development of skills needed to form successful, healthy relationships. Charlie was concerned with the decreasing models of healthy relationships teens had to emulate. Charlie quickly realized that with the cooperation of fellow businessmen, colleagues, educators, and friends, he could make a difference, and he founded the Dibble Fund, now known as the Dibble Institute. Charlie's vision was to have accurate, unbiased, and timely research-based information available for you. We pride ourselves in remaining true to Charlie's vision, and that is probably the greatest reason why we have these webinars, to continue Charlie's vision and to provide you with research-based information. Let me introduce our speaker today. She's one of our own outreach educators, Nancy Link, who came to us after 28 years of experience teaching family and consumer sciences. Her class is focused on helping young teens and parents develop skills for life and child development, parenting, marriage and family, and through her FCCLA leadership. Nancy, welcome to our webinar.
Thank you, Irene. Thank you, Irene.
Are you having trouble with your...
Well, I'm trying to get it. There we go. It's just a little delayed. My apologies. Thank you, Irene. Welcome to Dibble Land, as we so fondly call it here with Dibble workers. I wanted to start by letting you know who you're sitting in the audience with. Seems that we're about 100 strong. There are about a third of you that are family and consumer sciences teachers. 25% are in the pregnancy prevention field. 12% are social workers. 1% is community action. And then the final almost 30% are a variety of others that are interested in the subject. Welcome, and I'm so glad to see you this afternoon. You know, I remember well the rites of spring for young people. About this time of year, there was a feeling of love that was in the air. My sister and I, who taught together, always described it as those pre-prom hormonal dances that students glided to as they went down the hall, trying to make sure they'd have a date for prom. And then some of my fondest memories of college was walking across campus on those days that I hoped would be the last cold day and dreaming of a warmer spring break. Let's take a quick poll of the audience. What is your biggest concern for young people that you work with? Is it prom? Is it spring break? Or would it be both? If you'd take some time and look at the pop-up screen and then click on your answer now.
Well, Nancy, this is Kathy. It looks like the greatest percentage is from both of them. Everyone seems to have both the concerns of prom and spring break.
Well, good. We're going to hit both subjects quite a bit this afternoon.
Oh, and may I say, Kathy, I forgot to introduce you. Kathy is our organizer for the meeting, so she'll be popping in and out with some of your messages, relaying them on to Nancy. Thanks, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Our young people are full of energy and ready to shake off winter and get away from the pressures of school. They're planning proms, they're making spring break plans, but most include plans to find love and to hook up. What I noticed in this picture is her umbrella. Do you think that even she knows that there could be bad weather ahead? Spring is supposed to be a fun time to kick up your heels. Many prom and spring break prevention programs concentrate on helping young people avoid alcohol, drugs, and to drive safely. We at the Dibble Institute encourage you to include relationship skills to keep their hearts safe. We all want to find ways to have young people take as much time in planning, choosing, and being particular about their partners as they are in shopping for their prom dresses, choosing tuxes, or making travel plans. Skills are what is needed to help them slow down and make a conscious decision before giving their heart away. Teens can learn to protect their hearts by asking questions. They gain a much clearer picture of the person they want to be and of those people that they're inviting into their lives. They should ask questions, lots and lots of questions, before choosing a group to travel with to spring break, especially if it's out of the country, or choosing a prom date. Those honest assessments, they're important to help make wise choices. Relationship education can help young people feel empowered with knowledge, experience, and gain strategies to help them build successful, healthy partnerships. Becoming empowered allows them to have fun, but still make wise choices to stay safe. Today's presentation will consider 3 key points. The first is that it's springtime. Teens are going to be drawn into romantic encounters. Secondly, young people can be empowered to make healthy romantic relationship choices. And finally, we'll discuss strategies that can be implemented to help young people keep their hearts safe. The first key point is just as surely as spring follows winter, teens are being drawn into romantic encounters. We know that 80% of young people by the age of 18 have been in a romantic relationship. But there's still that 20% that either haven't dated or are not interested. They should consider relationship education as something like driver's ed.
You know, Nancy, it often makes me wonder why we require more of drivers to learn and get a driver's license than we do for preparing for life itself.
You're right, Irene. I remember my kids with those dog-eared driver's books that they would study for a while to make sure that they would pass the test, but I certainly don't remember ever having them study to be able to go out on a date. But dating and having romantic relationships are part of normal development for most young people. Recent research has found that young people whose romantic relationships are nurturing and close also tend to have reached more milestones of adult development. This includes a stronger sense of self-identity. Yes, dreams of prom and spring break have been part of pajama parties for years. Girls may have dreamed about them much longer than boys, but I think both have seen it as a rite of passage in high school and college.
I can remember when raising my children that we are kind of holding our breath and keeping our fingers crossed, hoping that everything goes okay, that there's no really long-term consequences following this.
I do remember those sleepless nights on prom, and that was me waiting for that car to pull into the garage so that you knew that they were home safe. So much of the development is tied to the brain. Brain research has concluded that we are wired to connect. That's why developing strong relationships is so important. At the same time, the frontal lobe, that reasoning and judgment part of the brain, does not fully develop until the mid-20s. Recent brain scans have shown that developing adolescent brains function differently than adults, especially when they're making decisions and problem solving. Their actions are guided more by the amygdala, that emotional brain, and it's less by the frontal cortex, the reasoning judgment brain.
So is that why adolescents are more likely to act on impulse and misread those social cues and emotions? Consequently, we worry about driving and risky behavior, fights, and so forth.
Oh my goodness, yes. They are so much less likely to think before they act, to pause before they consider consequences, or even to modify dangerous behavior. In other words, they're still developing. Let's stop a moment for another poll. As you look at this picture, think of the influence that must have brought all of these young people to this picture. When young people were polled who influenced them the most when it comes to dating relationships, how do you think they answered? On the pop-up screen, take some time now to answer. Do you think they would say friends, the media, parents, siblings, or their boyfriends and girlfriends?
Wow, it looks like the friends overwhelmingly have it. At 75% of people think they're more influenced by their friends.
Wow. Then most of you are going to be surprised by the findings of the research published in the brochure Kiss and Tell by the National Campaign to Prevent Teenage Pregnancy. And what they found is that 35% of young people said it was their parents. Isn't that good news? A close second, at 28%, it said it was their friends. And then coming in dead last at 2% were their boyfriends and girlfriends. When young people hang out at a party, something like this, though, I think we all know that their parents' influence might take second fiddle to being in the moment.
Nancy, if I could say, I love this picture. And I wonder if anyone else noticed, you know, there's all these things going on, but there is her friend. One girl has the funneled, I'm assuming, alcohol being poured into her. And her friend is holding her hand. What's that about, do you think?
You know, it has made me wonder, too, why are they, I guess it's a matter of support, but it also made me wonder what influenced this so-called game that a lot of young people call it. Was it the media? Was it their friends? Or was it a tradition of the group? Or maybe it was a tradition of this particular beach where people start hanging out. But it's definitely an emotional part of the brain that's screaming, I want to fit in and I want to party.
I had to myself interpret it somewhat, thinking, hey, we've got to do this, and you're not alone in this. I'm going to get you through. And I don't see too many other girls in this side of the picture. Maybe behind them, but I see a lot of guys there.
That was one of my major concerns, too, the preponderance of males to females. I think we both can agree, though, there's a lot to think about in this picture. Something that came to my mind recently was I was almost sure if you would go to Google Images and type in parents' worst nightmare in spring break, this picture would probably pop up. Oops, I need to get... You know, relationships usually start with attraction. That's what's in the air. It's love chemicals. Love chemicals is a term coined by Marlene Pearson, author of the Dibble Institute's Curricula, Love Notes, and Relationship Smarts Plus programs. I'm sure most of us remember that falling in love for the first time. There were undescribable feelings of being completely smitten. You ran around grinning from ear to ear like this young guy on the right. But not all relationships start with attraction. Some young people engage in relationships just to feel normal. All their friends have a relationship, they need to get one too. Prom is coming up, they need to find a date. They meet someone at spring break and they think they've fallen in love. The reasons are as varied as there are young people. Yep, those love chemicals can be blamed for the actual change in chemistry of the brain that give those powerful, exciting feelings. When you meet someone you are highly attracted to, your brain actually becomes saturated with an amphetamine-like neurotransmitter. In other words, you begin to feel like you're on drugs. You're high on love, as they might say. You're on an emotional roller coaster and your heart is racing. And you've got that goofy grin on your face. As you look at this picture, did some of you notice how uncomfortable or maybe awkward this young couple looks? Some people feel pressured by their parents or their friends to date. No matter the reason, people of all sexual orientations need healthy romantic relationship skills.
Nancy, I have to intersperse here that I just read a study on the LGBT community that, very surprising, that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgendered youth reported they were 2 times more likely than their peers to have been or gotten someone pregnant.
That was shocking to me the first time I heard it as well. I guess their struggle with sexual orientation can lead to risky behavior in order to prove that they are normal or just to fit in.
And if I could add to that, to me it sounds like all kids are vulnerable, whether social, economic, it doesn't matter what it is.
That I would agree with as well. But Irene, what do you think most adults would think if they came across this bumping and grinding party that's on the beach?
Well, before I had my own children, I probably would think it was a full of loud, obnoxious, and definitely irresponsible teens, young people.
I've tried to think about this myself. I think if I had driven up on the beach, I'd probably go back and get in my car and go to a quieter section. But I agree. But don't you think those dancers think, well, we're just having a good time? They probably invite you to join along. Many parents don't understand why their teenagers behave as they do. There is a biological answer, though. It's an immature brain acting on emotion.
Oh, so are you saying it's not their fault, really?
Oh, no, not at all. Their brain differences do mean that it doesn't mean that they can't make good decisions or that they can't tell the difference between right or wrong. It also doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held responsible for their actions. But the awareness of these differences can help parents, educators, and even the young people themselves understand, anticipate, and then manage the behaviors of adolescents. With that understanding, young people can become more aware of their choices of social groups and partners.
Well, so how do we help young people make wiser, safer choices?
You know, I think visual demonstrations can sometimes leave the most lasting impressions. What comes to my mind is the activity called choosing reds or greens, found in Love Notes and Relationship Smarts First, to help make the point the best. If everyone in the audience would start picturing in your mind a bowl of marbles, and within that bowl there are mainly red marbles and just a few green marbles. And what that bowl contains, that those marbles represent choices that students have for picking friends or people that they're going to travel with or people that they're going to hook up with this spring. But now let's go further. When you see those reds, they're going to represent people that maybe have a lot of problems. They have problems with the law, or they have problems with their family. You have a hard time being yourself when you're around them. There even may be some dangerous people in this group. Now think about those green marbles. They're going to represent people that are having just as much fun, but they're making healthier choices. They're not perfect by any means, because there are no perfect people, but you feel much more comfortable and you feel accepted and you can be yourself. Look at these two groups. If you went with that group of red people here on the left, at first it might be that they're very bright and you think, oh gosh, they seem to be very fun. But then you start finding out that maybe you're involved with the wrong crowd. They make poor choices, they're impulsive, and they lack self-control. You just don't feel comfortable and safe. But now let's look on the right. There's a group of green people. They're just as bright, and they're having fun as well. But if you choose these green people, it wouldn't be a perfect fit. But they think like you, and you feel loved and safe. Even if there's a red or two red people in the group, they're still more likely to make safe choices. We want young people attending prom to have a healthy experience. I'd like to ask for a volunteer to come to the front of the computer this afternoon. Oh my gosh, what I'm noticing is all of you are up here. Well, that's good. We'll go with it this way. Now, what I want you to envision is this bowl of marbles in front of me. It contains mainly red marbles and just a few green. In just a minute, I'm going to ask you to pick a representative of who you would travel with to spring break or go to prom with. But just to make it interesting, we're going to put a blindfold on you. So does everybody have their blindfold on? No fair peeking. Now start thinking through. I've got the bowl here. I would like all of you volunteers to reach forward and to pick a marble. Before you take your blindfold off, what color do you think you picked? It'd be red, don't you think? I know. Some of you are going to go, I got a green one, I got a green one. That does happen. Sometimes you're just flat out lucky. But I would like to pose the question to the group. What could be done to increase the chances of getting a green marble or having a safe person to go to prom with? The answers will vary, but when you ask most young people, they would say something along the lines of, well, take the blindfold off. They'd usually add duh after that. Or maybe add more green marbles. Take away red marbles. This exercise is something like learning relationship skills. If you can take off your blindfold, open your eyes to healthy choices, then you can be more intentional about your behavior and the groups that you're with. This kind of intentional behavior can lead to stronger friendships, family connections, and romantic relationships in the future. And by the way, everybody, I'd like my marble back in the bowl. Now, when you...
Nancy, it kind of reminds me of that picture on the beach that girl made. She really picked the red marble.
Oh, did she ever? In her friends and in the friend that's holding her hand and all of the males hanging around. They're just glowing red, that's for sure. So while you're going back to your seat, when you get there, I want you to stand up. So if you're seated, stand up. Stand up if you agree with my second point that young people can be empowered to make healthy romantic relationship choices. And I'd like you to remain standing to motivate that blood flowing through your body and up to your brain. I'm sure most of you have heard that in order to keep your brain sharp, you have to have movement about every 20 minutes, and we're about at that point in this presentation. And we want you to keep your brain sharp so that you can understand that no matter the income, the neighborhood, age, family, or educational level of the youth that you serve, they all deserve to start learning relationship skills for a better future. If you wonder why teens behave so irresponsibly, well, it's because they are somewhat irresponsible. And they will not become responsible, mature, and wise until they engage in the process of dealing with some of the consequences of their choices and behaviors. Kind of reminds me of when they were in the terrible twos to an extent. It's a cycle that needs to happen over and over before teens become fully mature.
It's so sad, though, so often consequences that they have to encounter because of their poor choices can really derail all the work they do in their school years.
You know, the research that we have finds that the majority of teens and young people have very high, lofty goals in high school and college as well. Sometimes I feel it's our job to save them from themselves and their consequences. If we can offer them ways to be thoughtful and open their eyes to possible dangers, to get a clearer picture of their social groups and their partners, it can truly help. One of my favorite programs that Dibble offers are the things to know before you say go to your heart cards. There's 70, that's a deck of 76 cards, and each one has a main question. Students can go through the deck of cards and find out about themselves, or they can find out about people in the group that they're planning on hanging out with this spring. It's about kind of learning to read people. Let's do a card sort activity with these two cards. There's a main question on the front of each card, and if I was able to flip these over, there'd be 5 to 6 expanded questions on the back to get them to be more thoughtful. I'll read the main question, and then I'm going to pick 2 to 3 of the expanded questions on the back of the card. As I read these, I'd like you to think about the 2 statements on the slide. Which one is most important? Which would be your top concern? And then which would be the second? Furthermore, I'd like you to think about the consequences these 2 cards could have if you were going to prom or spring break with a group. Okay, let's begin. The first card is on friends. Does this person get along with my friends? And some of the expanded questions are, does this person enjoy being with me when I'm around my friends? Another one, what do my friends say about this person when he or she is not around? Can be very telling. And the third one, is this person jealous of my friendship? The second one is, do I treasure this person? An expanded question, do I feel proud to stand beside this person as their partner? I'd like to expand that. Do I feel proud to stand beside this person with my family? Does what this person have to offer me materialistically or emotionally cloud my view of who they really are? Which would be your top concern? Look at the control panel and vote. Would you think it would be card number 1 or card number 2? Vote now.
Nancy, I'm going to give them a little bit more time to vote here, and then I'm going to close it out.
Okay, start thinking. Do you think it would be the friends statements, or do you think it would be, do I treasure this person?
Well, Nancy, I'm going to close this out, and guess what? It looks like card number 1 has it.
So they're back to friends. I think both of them are important if you think about it. The most concern was how they would get along with your friends, and I think if you were in a younger group, that would be very important. But if we were to pose these same 2 questions to young people, do you think they would answer differently? Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. Would someone like to, and then why did you choose the answer that you did? Does this person get along with my friends? Would anyone like to share a comment?
If you'd like to share, you can just write your comment in the question box, and I'll read it out loud for you.
Well, as we think about consequences, many young people don't consider, oops, I got to get down here, the dangers that go along with those consequences. For yourself as a...
I'm sorry,
okay.
now we're getting some comments back in here before we move any further.
Okay. I didn't give them time to think.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly. No, you're fine. Tiffany says that they value their friends' opinion, and Paula mentions that because friends don't see our loved ones with rose-colored glasses like we sometimes do. And then Susan mentions that it really all depends on the age of the individuals.
That's true. I've thought about this presentation with our 8th grade dance usually has something similar, and how students that age would be different than high school, and then how college age would be different. Those really are true. But you know, the dangers would be quite different for all 3 groups as well. As the audience thinks, what are your fears for young people on prom night or spring break? Many parents' fears range from having their children's hearts broken, alcohol intoxication, car accidents, teen pregnancies, STIs, or not even coming home at all.
Oh, the worst, the worst. I'm always thinking every spring break of the Natalie Holloway story in 2005. What a nightmare.
You know, at first we might have thought that having hearts broken may seem the least of the fears or the least dangerous. But did you know that the #1 time for young people to commit suicide is just after a breakup? Or what kind of effect if there was someone that had given their heart away on spring break and then they see the same person the next day and they don't even remember who they are? What kind of future would their relationships be, or what kind of skills would they need to be able to get over that and then develop healthy relationships in the future? It's something really to consider. It's time to give yourself a rest. Do any of you happen to work with young people with learning disabilities or have family members with a disability? If you do, would you look on the control panel and right where there are little green microphones, directly across from that there's a hand. Would you take a moment and raise your hand? That is, click on the hand.
Well, it looks like we have quite a few, actually. I would say there's probably about 5 of us on the call today that fall in this category. Nancy?
Good. I think we all would agree that all students deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Students with disabilities are just as excited and anxious to attend prom and participate in spring break activities. But research, they can be our most vulnerable students. Research shows that most people with disabilities will experience some form of sexual assault or abuse. And the scariest factor is 97 to 99% of the abusers are known and trusted by the victims who have developmental disabilities. It's a very, very scary thought. So what can we do? For those of you working with students with learning disabilities, the Dibble Institute has added a curriculum called Mike's Crush. It's intended to be used with high school students with autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disabilities. It's based on 2 videos, Mike's Good Day and Mike's Bad Day. It uses the videos, role-playing, and class discussions to keep students engaged while learning all types of relationship skills, and especially healthy romantic relationship skills to keep them safe. Okay, it's time to give yourself a rest. That is, if you're one of those people that's actually been standing. This is the final point, is to encourage young people to plan and implement a project so that during the prom or the spring break season to help other people keep their hearts safe. I've found in working with students there's no better motivation than to get them up and get them busy and involved to spread the word of safety. Does anyone here have a safety program used in their school setting or the setting where you work with young people that seems to be very effective? If you do, I'm going to give you a time delay this time. If you could go down to where it says comments and give us an idea of what the name of the program is. Later on, Kathy will share your ideas with us. You know, campaigns can be as simple or as involved as you and your students are willing to make them. Your enthusiasm and their emotional tie to the subject will be all the fuel that's needed to help save hearts and lives this spring. These campaigns are also an excellent place to use technology. Use websites, Twitter, you can create videos with smartphones, or you could watch internet short clips on a smart board and then discuss them in class. You know that old-fashioned teaching technique of discussing one person talking to another? That could actually be done. This is a teen dating violence poster that's available for free download on the Dibble Institute's website. You make some copies of it, hang the copies in the hallway and the cafeteria, and then have your students read the information and develop some questions over the information on the posters. You could ask questions of the rest of the student body in the daily bulletin, or you could pass out little slips with different questions during lunch. Students then would have to refer to the flyer to get their answers. When they return the answer to student representatives in your classroom or the cafeteria, give them a small prize. It could be something as inexpensive as a dum-dum sucker. Put a tag on it, "Don't be a dum-dum for teen dating violence." Or if chocolate is more of your liking, give them a candy kiss with a statement of, "Kiss teen dating violence goodbye." I've seen Star Mints used very effectively with statements similar to, "You were meant to stop teen dating violence."
In the school I visited recently, they had a electronic message board that I thought would be really very applicable for these kind of messages.
That would be best, I think, if you could go back to your students and have them come up with statements, and then they would have more ownership of it. I do see that we have some of you that are not in a school setting. Use something like this with your small groups. Develop questions over this flyer, and then put the questions on slips of paper. As they come into the group activity, give them the question, and then have different flyers around the room, or you could put them on different tables. Students then would go and find the answer to one question, and then when you got together as a group, they could read their question and then discuss what the answer is. Put them in papers if there's going to be students that would have trouble reading.
Nancy?
My FCCLH, yes.
I'm sorry, Nancy, I just want to interject here. If someone has any other ideas, we've got about 20 minutes left. And so if you all are have any programs that you're implementing in your classrooms or in your schools or in your community settings, you'll send those in to me, and then if we have time at the end, we will definitely talk about those, or I will send them out in an email to you all. But we've got about 20 minutes left till the end of the webinar.
Thank you, Kathy.
Very welcome.
My FCCLA chapter compiled a quiz, and that's the way they shared information. Make your quiz over relationship skills information. You can offer it to first start classes or maybe classes right after lunch. The classes as a group would take the quiz and then return it with their answers. Offer the winning class something like breakfast if it's in the morning or dessert if it's in the afternoon. I do recommend that you kiss your quiz. An old principal used to say this all the time. Keep it simple, stupid. Make it only 4 to 5 questions. Make it mainly multiple choice, but be sure to put one question that's a percentage or a date so that there can only be 1 or 2 winners. There are many national campaigns to make prom and spring break safe. Here are 2 that focus on avoiding drug and alcohol. These campaigns are posted on the internet and they give detailed plans and strategies. What I would recommend is to have your students research the campaign as a guide. They could change and tweak the plans into a healthy relationship skills campaign. Have them get some of their own ownership by renaming the campaign or use some of their own ideas that have been effective in your school in the past. My main thing is start small this spring. And then you could find out what works best, take the same kind of format and bring it back next fall, and you could do a relationship skills campaign during homecoming week. I'd like to know how many FCCLA advisors we have out there. If you're an advisor, could you go over and raise your hand?
Well, it looks like Julie is an advisor, and Emily. Goodness, we've got a couple of them on the call, Nancy.
Well, Julie and Emily, you have a
and
special place
Paige,
in my...
Rachel, I'm sorry, I don't want to miss anything.
Oh, my.
Susan and Vicki keep getting hand raised. That's great.
We're going to have them stand more often. You know, FCCLA advisors have a special place in my heart, that's for sure. Your FCCLA chapters could choose relationship skills as your program for work this spring, Or maybe approach kids with maybe you could do it next fall. I know the national programs are already due and turned in, but maybe you could do a national program like Stop the Violence, Families First, Community Service, Student Body, where they could feel better about themselves, or have members complete a Power of One module. They could start the paperwork this year, and then next year it would be easier to get it done and then get it turned in for recognition. In STAR events, I helped the 7th grader with an illustrated talk. Her topic was bullying. The majority of the information came from our curriculum, Healthy Choices, Healthy Relationships. She was top in the junior category at Missouri, and then she took her illustrated talk on to national and had a top 3-star rating. If you have some of our curriculum, use it in your STAR events projects. If you have particular lessons that your school likes the best, use that. You know, there's a wealth of resources available on the Dibble Institute's website. If you're having trouble navigating that, we had a webinar 2 months ago. You could go through and rewatch that. We have movie guides for numerous movies. Have a movie night, serve popcorn and soda, and prior to that, set up a Twitter account so students could tweet their comments about the film as they watched. There are any number of internet sites. StayTeen.com is a website with short clips where there's testimonials from teens about relationship skills. Watch the clips on a smart board and then lead discussions. Or better yet, have the students watch the clips and then assign students to lead the discussion. Have students research a PSA announcement, a public service announcement. Then divide your groups into smaller groups where they could write and video their own PSA using their smartphone. They could choose topics such as communication, decision-making, or keeping safe at prom and spring break. I have all of my ideas written down on a tip sheet, and Irene will let you know later where to find them. You know, the Dibble Institute's materials are activity-based best practices. They give students a guide to make their own decision and build skills so that they can have healthy relationships instead of lecturing and telling them what to avoid. You can log on to the Dibble homepage and compile a list of useful links. They're found under the free resources. The links that you think would be best for your group. And then divide them down into pairs or small groups. Yes?
I'm sorry, Nancy. I was going to ask you a question. Mary had wanted to know, she wanted to know how can teens develop realistic expectations about their romantic experiences. Are these some of the things that you're mentioning now? Is this some of the things that teens could actually go through to be more realistic in their decision making and what they really want out of relationships?
The one that I think of is there is a link to My Paper Boyfriend and My Paper Girlfriend. And they get on, and it starts off superficial. What color hair do you want? Do you want to dress them preppy? Do you want to dress them, I don't know, whatever way you're going to dress them? And then it goes through and asks them questions about how they would decide, make some relationship decisions. And then it will actually tell them, that's pretty much in the red. That could be a dangerous. That one is right on target. You know, it tells them whether it's a healthy decision or not. I do know that in several of the Dibble curriculum, there are numerous lessons in the Connections program and Love Notes. And if she would email me, I'll look through and let you know what some of those lessons are actually. I can think of the free download lesson for Relationship Smarts Plus, and it goes over the 7 principles of a good relationship, and it's free download that you could look at it and then possibly think about buying the curriculum later.
Great,
Nancy,
thank
could
you.
I also interject too? what we're talking about is already, we're looking at maybe a month before prom, and maybe spring break for your group is 1-2 weeks away. So we're looking at a short period of time. That's why we at the Dibble Institute feel it is so important to intersperse relationship skills education through the course of the year. That's communication, knowing expectations, knowing who you are, and how to know another person. These are the kind of things that are building habits of the heart, so that you are actually teaching them over the long run. But unfortunately, we only have a short time to get to them if we haven't been teaching relationship skills along the way. And hopefully some of our members already have, and they're just looking for some additional ideas. But hopefully they'll decide after this that I can see where I can place, if I can't teach a whole course on relationship skills, I can certainly add a week into it, or 2 weeks, something like that.
To further answer your question, I would recommend that you go to that stay, S-T-A-Y, teen.org, and that's where those 30 to 45-second testimonials by teens, like one of them discusses trust. They discuss different terminologies, and then have your students discuss that and come up with their own ideas. Use what's available. Start small and build on that.
Do we have any more questions, Kathy?
Not right this minute. Does anyone have any questions? We've got about 10 minutes left of the webinar before we are going to go into what we'll be seeing in the next webinars coming up. We'll give you a few minutes to write any questions down.
My final idea here is to have pairs of students navigate those websites that you chose, and then they could do teachbacks to the class of what they learned in class. The information, to me, has a possibility of rippling far outside your classroom and into the community. Since students rely mainly on their friends for advice and counsel, I'm sure if they find a place that they can go for help, they're going to pass that knowledge on when their friends have relationship problems. So have we got any comments now, Kathy?
Looks like everyone has had their comments answered at this time, but we'll be posting our email and our website up in case they do have other questions.
Okay, thank you. Yes, young people have their own dreams of shaking off winter and getting away from the pressures of school. They think of turning to love and hooking up. Spring is supposed to be fun and a time to kick up your heels. We at the Dibble Institute encourage you to include relationship skills so all young people will keep their hearts safe. Teens can learn to protect their hearts by asking questions to gain a clearer picture of themselves as well as the people that they're inviting into their lives. They should ask questions, lots and lots of questions. We all want to find ways to have young people take as much time planning and choosing their partners as they do purchasing, choosing their prom dress and tuxedo, or making travel plans. Relationship education can help teens feel empowered with knowledge, experience, and develop strategies to build successful, healthy partnerships and make wise choices to stay safe. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It has truly been my pleasure to present this, and I'd like to turn it back over to Irene for some final comments.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Gosh, there was a lot of good information there. Just to remind you that this webinar will be available as a recording on the Dibble Institute website. So check there, possibly give it 2 days for that to occur. Our next webinar, Integrating Relationship Education into Health Classes. Maybe you don't teach health, but you know someone in your organization or school who does that would be interested. Shar Camper, who is one of our authors of Healthy Choices, Healthy Relationships will be one of the speakers, along with Kathy Schleier, who's a pediatric nurse practitioner who has integrated Healthy Choices, Healthy Relationships into her health class. So she'll give you some ideas of what the program is about and how to implement it in your health classes. We have one special offering as well that we're going to do. You know, typically we have the second Wednesday of every month, but we are going to have a special webinar called The Next Generation Integrating Healthy Relationship Education. I'm sorry, my screen went down. Integrating Sex Ed with Relationship Education. And this will be April 19th. There will be more information available on our website. We'll be sending out emails for a registration link. If you like us, please like us on Facebook. And being on Facebook, we do send out a lot of recent updates to research through Facebook, as well as our Dibble website and our e-newsletter. I have a feeling most of you are already on our e-newsletter since you're attending this. But if not, please consider joining our newsletter. Next slide, Kathy.
I think that's it.
That's it. Thank you again. And before you leave, when you log off, it will take you to a short, I mean really short survey with some of your evaluations, and also any suggestions that you want to see as topics. Please let us know by putting them into your little chat box as well. It's been such a pleasure being with you today, and I know you must be like me looking for spring. We all are. And let's hope that all our students are having a healthy spring. Enjoy, and thank you again. We look forward to hearing from you again next month. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.